Meaghan Chitwood, and you are tuning in to From Overlooked to Consistently Booked, where we are talking today about how leadership directly translates into referability. And again, we have Jason here with us, wrapping up an amazing set of nuggets that you've delivered over the last few weeks. So I want to talk to you about how do you think your leadership has really contributed to your company culture and ultimately your referability?
Man, that's a really tricky question to answer. I'm just going to start with saying, if your employees trust that you have their back, and they trust that you have the back of your customer too, it's not a battle that they're going to have to fight, and there's not have to be a loser, because things are going to go wrong on jobs sometimes, and they want to know how we're going to get it fixed. The other thing that I think is just the confidence that they go in that home and know they're not going to be in trouble if they didn't reach a certain number. So when you go to someone's home and you get there, one of the sayings in the HVAC industry is it's never just a capacitor. And the idea there is don't ever just sell someone a capacitor. You need to sell them a capacitor in the kitchen sink too. Well, there's some truth to it's never just a capacitor.
So one time for me, it was the capacitor. Were they lying to me or not?
Sometimes it is just the capacitor.
Okay. It was just the capacitor then.
And so an employee doesn't feel this pressure to walk into the house and cook something up. And put that over onto the customer. And I think that makes us a referable company because, when the customers are finished and they speak to their neighbor and the neighbor says something to them like, boy, how much did they get you for? The last company that was at my house got us for X amount of money. And they say, actually, it wasn't that bad. Really? Well, what's their names? Who was it that came out? Let me get their info. I think that's a big help. The other thing I think about, the leadership that can make us really referable is the idea that, we don't have these crazy scheduled quotas for the guys either. So some companies, hey, you got to run 5 calls a day. And we try, even if we get busy, sometimes we are going to run 5 calls a day. Yeah. Sometimes we're not. It just depends on what the schedule looks like. When you have a company that puts those quotas on you no matter what, you end up in people's homes who you really probably didn't need to be in. What I mean by that is, they will have the office personnel call and set appointments for things, maintenances or whatever have you. And you're there in a home trying to sell someone something whose air conditioner is just fine. And that leaves your customer with a little bit of a bad taste in their mouth. So if every time you deal with a customer, it's either for legitimate, the air conditioner went down, or you were there for the seasonal maintenance, not just because it was slow and we called and pushed you to get one, that conversation feels a little bit differently than, hey, I know everything's been working fine, but can I interest you in this big package that we've put together? Is that customer likely to call you back or refer you to their neighbor or their daughter? It feels good when you fix a man's air conditioner and, 6 weeks later, he calls you, says, y'all fix my air conditioner. Now I want to send you to my daughter's house. Yes. That's a good feeling.
Yeah.
And I think that comes down to the culture of the company, which is directly descended of the company's leadership.
Yeah. How would you suggest someone builds their leadership skill? What would they need to do to really think about it to get to where you are today?
That's a tough question too. I was in the military and I was in a leadership role for most of that time in the military. So a lot of this stuff just feels like, Tuesday to me. So I don't really have a good answer for how I would tell someone to build it other than this. Remember those, leaders that you've had throughout your lifetime who were effective, and remember the ones who were ineffective. Yeah. Pull the bits and pieces from the effective ones that you really liked and try to integrate that into how you run the ship. And I think you'll find that things will work really well.
Well, and I think you've also taken what you didn't like about the HVAC industry, and I think you rolled it into and figured out what are those things, and we're not going to have those things within our company. So was that an intentional thing that you did, or was that just something that sort of happened?
100%. When I left to go on my own, I actually had an offer to go work for the government. It was going to be a really cool job working on a THAAD missile system. How cool is that? Traveling around and working on this thing. Oh man, the hoops they were trying to get me to jump through, and just the corporate feel and the stiffness of it all. Oh, you can't say that. You got to be careful about that. I was like, this doesn't even feel real. Like we're banning, real interactions, and we've forced ourselves into being actors all day at work. I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that.
Well, and the awesome thing is you're not asking anybody who works with you to do that either. You're asking them to be totally real and transparent and be you, this is, I love how you said, you're an advocate for the customer as well as the employee, because you're just trying to find a win-win for everyone. And if those two people win, you ultimately win as well.
Right. If the company survives, then the company's here to help. That's the way, I look at it. So is this going to kill the company? No. Yeah. There's no one job going to kill this company that goes bad. And when I say, I don't want to give you the idea that a lot of jobs go bad, but sometimes they do. Yeah. I've bought brand new air conditioners and installed them and turned them on and had a bad compressor. Yeah. Oh, that's terrible when it's July, and then it's even worse when you got to call the customer and say, hey, they can't get a new compressor for 3 weeks. We are not going to call the customer and tell them that. We will call the distributor and say, I need another condenser. I'm coming to get it right now. And we will figure this out later.
We'll figure that part out later.
Yeah, that's not for them. That's not their fault. There's a saying that I have. I always say, it's not my fault, but it's my problem. And that's me kind of wanting to take ownership of these problems, because it's not the customer's fault either. Does it have to be their problem? I don't think it does.
That's an interesting one. I have a high responsibility value where I feel responsible. And I use the word because just like what you said, it was my fault, but I'm responsible for making sure that it's not. And I think if that trickles down, how awesome is that within your company as well?
Oh, I've heard my employees say to people, oh, don't worry, Jason's going to take care of it. Yeah. I've heard they've had them be on the phone with me. Hey, let me tell you what's going on. And I can hear the panic and the worry on the customer's, voice on the other end. And my guys say, hey, let me just tell you to just be calm. I'm just telling Jason what it is. We're taking care of this. I'm just asking him what he wants me to do.
Yeah. That's amazing. So, you had originally, back in our first episode, talked about your story a little bit. How long did it take you from you being the one truck to where you are today?
A little over a year. So the first BNI chapter I went to was not a good fit. Spoke with the real estate agent there, and I thought she would probably be my biggest referral partner. And it so happened that she asked me for a referral for her own home to get a new air conditioning system. So man, I threw her a price that should have just knocked her socks off. And she was sticker shocked. And what that told me was that she really didn't have her finger on the pulse of what HVAC cost. And therefore, she's probably not as good of a referral partner as I thought she was going to be.
Yeah.
The second realtor that I spoke with, he was talking to me about components. What do you charge for this? What do you charge for that? And that told me he deals with this a whole lot. So not saying anything bad about that other chapter. That was a great chapter. But for me, this was a better fit. So that was a key difference. It took him about 4 months to throw me the first bone. And then it began to trickle a little bit more and more and more. And by the time we were 6 months in, so 2 months from the time he threw me the first one, it was an avalanche. And so So
you're talking first referral. Then how many would you say, a week or a month, or referrals were you getting at that point?
Started off with, one, and then it turned into 2 or 3 a week, and then it turned into 2 or 3 a day.
Wow.
And that's for just one guy, that was a lot.
Yeah.
But then we made it to the slow season, and the busy season was right around the corner. So roughly a year and 2 months before I was like, I've got to hire some more people because I can't do it all.
And it was that one amazing referral partner.
That one connection.
Yeah.
Was the difference. He was responsible for the first year for about half of my business. Yeah. And he actually today is still responsible for about 20% because they have continued to throw me more and more and more.
I talk a lot about surrounding yourself with the right referral partners to ultimately make that happen. And I know you use BNI to make that happen. But if you were to try to do that outside of BNI, what would you do?
I have tried it outside of BNI.
Okay. Yeah.
And I've not had good success with, don't get mad at me, Chamber. I love y'all, but I've not had success with the Chamber of Commerce that I have had.
Doing networking and things like that within it. Yeah.
I have, I bought a bass boat. I thought I'll go and enjoy these fishing things. And because that seems to be a huge sponsorship area.
Yeah.
Nope. I'm going to sell the boat. That didn't work out.
Yeah.
I recently bought, I can't believe I'm about to tell this secret, but I'm going to tell it. I bought a Corvette. And the reason I bought the Corvette, I like Corvettes, but there's also a really big Corvette club here in Huntsville.
Oh, interesting.
And that is a great way to connect because I'm not any good at golf, but here are my customers. They like Corvettes. I can probably join this Corvette club. I looked very carefully at Jeep. Jeep clubs are also my customers.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't understand the Jeep culture and I don't want to fake it.
That is great. I thought you were going to say you were going to get it wrapped with your company, your company stuff, just to join the club.
I've joined the club and I just want to be a member. It's not, hey, I have a Corvette. Are you going to buy an air conditioner? That's not what it is.
No, it's people have the same interests. I love people coming together for the same interests. Yeah.
And it's a big club. And, that may not be the case in your town, wherever you live, but here in Huntsville, our Corvette club is almost all retired military officers. And they're going to be
they're your people.
Yeah. They are our target demographic.
Yeah.
So
how did you identify? That's my favorite target demographic. How did you identify your target customer?
So we offer financing.
Okay.
But most of our customers don't finance.
Yeah.
But we do have it for people who want to do it. I'm just another contractor in a sea of contractors. So how am I going to get in front of the people who want to use me as a customer?
Yeah.
And we thought financing was going to be the answer, and it turned out not to be. And so we just kind of went back to the old drawing board. And I said, my perfect customer is not a first-time home buyer, because that air conditioner is probably new, and probably doesn't need much. My perfect customer is someone who lives in a neighborhood that's older, who's got neighbors whose air conditioners are older. Yeah. Maybe they're more involved with their neighbors than someone in a new community. And so I just noticed with, working with people, the customers who more often than not, I really identified well with were car guys.
Yeah.
If they had a car in their garage, man, we just became best friends.
Yeah.
And the next thing you know, their neighbors calling me and they say, "Oh, Rick down here gave me your number." And I was like, "Man, I need to connect with car people."
Yeah.
And this would be my third Corvette. I like Corvettes. I like them a lot. The Corvette club is strong. And I had a conversation with ChatGPT about it.
I love it.
And ChatGPT told me to avoid the Mustang crowd, because most Mustang owners are not homeowners.
Interesting.
Yeah. Told me to avoid the European model crowd, because it's not as well represented. And this is ChatGPT talking, not me. Okay.
Yeah.
They're a little pretentious.
I love it.
It said, "Jason, from what I know about you, I think your perfect customer is the Corvette crowd. There's a huge Corvette club right there in your town, and I think they're perfect. And as a close second, I'd urge you to consider the Jeep people." And so there you go.
And then try it. Why not? I love that nugget. I'm a big fan of using AI for that kind of thing. I did my annual debrief and what should I do next? And I ask it really random questions about myself all the time, and it usually nails the answer. So that is awesome that you used it to think about where it is.
At the end of the day, I said, you know what? We'll buy the car. We'll give it a year. If it doesn't work, I had a Corvette for a year.
Yeah.
If it does work, I'll have a Corvette for even longer.
I know. And then you might be able to get another one and another one and another one.
Right.
Yeah, that is fantastic. Oh, you have just given us a month worth of amazing learning, and I appreciate it so much. Love your story when you told it to me about 2 years ago. Thank you so much, Jason. This has just been an absolute pleasure, and I learned a lot actually from your leadership and your story that you've shared with us. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. I was happy to do it.
Thanks for tuning in. I love having real conversations like this. So please subscribe to the channel if this has resonated with you ultimately. And if you are interested in learning more about BNI and how it can be a resource for your business, visit northern.bnialabama.com or bni.com if you are outside of Northern Alabama.